Chapter 2. From Conflict to Consensus. How to Manage Disagreements and Difficult Conversations. Constructive Confrontations. Let me paint you a picture. Early in my career, I was part of a 9-person team, including operators, a mechanic, a cook, and a housekeeper. We were the incoming shift, arriving by helicopter for our time on the platform. As soon as we stepped into the waterflood office to meet the outgoing operator, he began ranting about the incompetence of the lead who was getting promoted. Within minutes, the room's mood plummeted. When the man left, my senior operator turned to me and remarked, "Well, that escalated quickly. That guy is such a pain." So how could we have avoided that awkward moment? Rather than diving into negativity, I tend to diffuse tension with humor. I'll lightheartedly address the situation, saying things like, "Oh, things are getting heated up around here," or, "Hold on, John, don't do it," or even, "Come on, it can't be that bad." Additionally, when I encounter complaints, I delve deeper. Instead of just nodding along to comments like, "John is stupid," I might counter with, "Do you feel he's genuinely lacking in knowledge, or is he just struggling with leadership?" Or suggest, "Perhaps he just needs further training." It is about addressing the behavior, not belittling the individual. Fostering a respectful work environment begins with active listening, and trust me, it is not as simple as it sounds. Many view listening without judgment as a sign of weakness, so it is essential to respond gently but assertively. Why asking, "Have you talked to them?" can make all the difference. We are no strangers to tough conversations in the oil field. But man, you will not believe how many times I hear someone go off about a coworker and then clam up when asked, "Have you actually talked to them about it?" Here is why that one simple question is so important and why you should ask it. It gets to the heart of the matter. Gossip and complaints are just hot air unless you are willing to address them directly. Asking this question reminds everyone that if there is a real problem, the most effective way to solve it is to talk to the person involved. It promotes accountability. When you put it back on the person complaining to take action, you are instilling a sense of responsibility. It helps shift the culture from one of whining to one of problem-solving. It reduces drama. Let's face it, the less time we spend gossiping, the more time we have to get the job done. And out here, time is money. It builds respect. If you've got the courage to address issues head-on, your colleagues will likely respect you more. They'll also think twice about involving you in trivial disputes. When all else fails, set boundaries. Just because someone wants to vent does not mean you have to be their sounding board. In those moments, I simply say, "I can't hear this right now," or "Can we talk about this later?" Remember, we are all here to get a job done. Keeping the lines of direct communication open is one of the best ways to ensure that everyone is pulling in the same direction. So the next time someone indulges in negativity toward another teammate, do not be afraid to ask that million-dollar question. Have you talked to them? Empowering solutions, not just complaints. In his book, Never Split the Difference, Chris Voss discusses his time working at a crisis hotline. He got a bad review because he was too busy fixing everyone else's issues instead of helping them figure out how to solve their own problems. That hit home for me. In the oil and gas world, we are quick to point out what is wrong. However, sometimes we are not so good at finding ways to fix it. Usually, people just say, "I don't know," and leave it at that. How could I guide them into addressing their complaints? I've had this kind of conversation. "Man, that pump's a piece of shit." "Why is that?" "It breaks constantly." When was the last time it broke? A while ago. How do we make sure it doesn't break again? I don't know. It's not always easy to get to the root cause, but it's important to enhance our ability to ask these questions, both of ourselves and others. Otherwise, we aren't seeking a solution. We are just adding to the noise. We can use the same technique when people throw accusations around instead of leading with the facts. For example, that guy is never at work. Are you implying that he is getting preferential treatment? Or is he lying on his time card? Here is the key takeaway. You have got to do more than point out problems. And for that, you must be willing to ask questions until you get to the bottom of the matter. Do you want to be the guy that people listen to? Then point out the problem and come ready with the solution. Make sure your suggestions are practical. Keep them simple and actionable. That way, you are not just the complainer, but an active contributor to improvement. So, the next time you find yourself in a difficult conversation, remember, be constructive, listen actively, guide rather than impose, lead with facts, and always aim for respectful dialogue. Navigating personal boundaries in a close-knit workplace. The guy liked physical touch. He wanted to shake your hand. He tried to hug you. He would walk up behind you and start rubbing your shoulders. Some liked it, some tolerated it. We had been working together for nearly 7 years, mostly on the same shift, and I had no qualms with casual gestures, like a pat on the back or him holding my shoulders and saying I looked stressed. However, over time, his actions became more akin to affection, which I did not appreciate. The situation came to a head during a casual coffee break. As I sat back against the wall, he laid his hand on my shoulder. Instinctively, I ducked away. "What's wrong?" he asked. "I just don't want to be touched right now," I replied. "I find it demeaning." He stormed out, swearing at me. Did I want to hurt his feelings? No. Did I want to be touched? No. Our day-to-day schedules didn't have us working in constant close quarters. We worked more like neighbors in a sprawling hotel than roommates in a small flat. But those little moments of overlap mattered. The tension between us cooled within a few days, but the episode offered a vital realization for both of us. Boundaries are critical. Unfortunately, our industry is not too big on educating us about boundaries. At least, not among men. Most training focuses on avoiding harassment toward women, largely because there are so few to begin with. Everyone has a story about an employee who no longer works there because of some type of verbal or physical lapse in judgment. However, as this incident proved, personal space is not a gendered issue. It is a human one. Gone are the days when hazing rituals would weed out the weak. Today, it is about mutual respect, ethics, and recognizing everyone's comfort zones. The aftermath was more or less uneventful. We discussed the issue privately, and I apologized for addressing the issue so bluntly. We moved on. It served as a wake-up call for both of us. As for me, I have grown more proactive in asserting my boundaries. When coworkers step over the line, I feel empowered to tell them exactly where that line is. Hopefully, most of us won't have to deal with unwanted physical confrontation. But if you do, here are a few things I suggest doing. 1. Find a quiet, private space to have this conversation to ensure privacy and minimize potential embarrassment. The leadership idiom, praise in public, criticize in private, applies. 2. Be clear when you communicate what you're uncomfortable about. Take ownership and frame it with an I. I feel uncomfortable when you want a hug from me. 3. If you want, you can include a reason. For example, I'm not a touchy person. However, no reason is necessary. A please and thank you goes a long way. Someone offering a hug? No thanks. I'm not a big hugger.